Thank you for joining us. You are watching KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. This is the Weekend Boost. I'm your host, Paul Lane, the author of the Caregiver's Handbook, a self-help love story. And guys, those of you who follow the show know that I am a friend of CALMA, C-A-L-M-A, the Colorado Alliance for Latino Mentors and Authors, and I passionately support them. And why is that? Because I know that they mentor young people. I know that they're producing authors. I know they're producing community leaders. And I know a lot of the members of CALMA. I believe I've had like about 16 CALMA members on the show now, maybe 19. But I intend to continue that. And so please reach out to CALMA, support CALMA, C-A-L-M-A. Google it. You won't be disappointed. If you're thinking about writing a book, guys, I implore you, pick up your tablet and start typing. It starts with page 1. It starts with page 1. I have a guest today who's already on her second book, and that's pretty exciting. I've had guests who have written 22 books. I have a young man, Todd Fonestock, 22 books. He's only 45 years old. What if you're 80? I don't care. Write a book. Start. Write a blog. Write a memo. Write a memoir. I've had several men and women who have written memoirs. Beatrice Montoya, oh, wonderful memoir. Ben Alire, there's just so many. And guys, every one of us has a book in us. And don't go to your grave and leave that book on the earth. Don't leave an unwritten book on the earth. Write that book. Guys, today I'm so excited because my guest today is one of the founding members of CALMA, which is really exciting to me because, like I say, I'm very excited about them. I support them. And she is not just an author, but she's a community leader. She's an activist. She really believes in what she's doing, and it's so important that these kind of young people come up in our community, represent, support, and and that we support them. And so, Christina Montoya, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's very good to have you. You're already on your second book. Your first book, The Sacred Roots of Ofelia Rosas. I love the title of this. The cover, fast, beautiful. We're not going to talk about this book today, but please, guys, if you're looking for a good book, where can they find it?
That's on Amazon.
This is on Amazon. So, Sacred Roots of Ofelia Rosas. And her current book, If I Never See You Again. I just finished this book yesterday. Those of you who know me know that I read out loud to my wife every day, and she loved it. I did too. I love that you really took a stretch from yourself. I mean, reading this, I can see that, oh man, I mean, for me trying to write from a perspective of a young Cuban male or a young Latina woman, I mean, not you're Latina, but from Miami. Are you from Miami?
No, I'm not, but I think I was just, I've always been fascinated with like letters in a bottle, so that's kind of where this whole idea stemmed from. And so I was like, well, the story needs to take place near the water. And so that's kind of how I came up with Miami. And yeah, so I'm not from Miami, I'm a Denver native.
Very cool.
A native of Colorado anyway. And so, yeah, that's why it's based in Miami. So.
I love when I have fiction authors on because I always ask them this question. Did you know what was going to be on the next page when you were writing?
No. I'm not that kind of writer. I guess there are real writers, I guess, who are just, have an educational background in writing, journalism or things like that. And they, map this whole thing out and they have this whole format, in the way that they write. For me, I don't write like that. I really enjoy taking the ride with the characters. And so I never really know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen at the end, and that's how I write. So
I got to tell you, I loved the ending of this book. It caught me by surprise. I mean, there was a part of me that thought, and I don't want to give too much of the book away, but this girl Valeria, she had a lost love. Who she grew up with. They were passionate about each other, and one day he found that his mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so Cruz, her lover, her boyfriend, decides that he's going to go take care of his mother and leaves without notice. And so there's this young lady who is passionately in love with Cruz, or with her boyfriend, who has lived her whole life with him by her side, and here she is all of a sudden finding out that she is alone. And I gotta say, I think that I can relate to that because I'm a romantic in that way, and Cruz leaves and he doesn't come back and he doesn't call, he doesn't write, and all throughout the book she just she just holds this steadfast hope. And as I was reading, I was talking to Dee, my wife, and I was telling her, you have to insert a part of yourself in this book, in a book when you're writing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. Right. A part of you is poured out into this. And so when you did this, how was that comfortable for you, or was that something like very foreign to you?
I think everybody kind of has that lost love in a way, And for me, this was, first of all, this is like in the YA genre. So it's young adults, it's for young adults mainly. But I don't want to say that all the time because I don't want it, to be restricted, because I think everybody can read this and enjoy it. I think it's a good read for adults as well. So,
absolutely.
I think that everybody kind of had that first love, and that's what I wanted people to kind of like feel and maybe reminisce about a little bit, whether they ended up with that person or not. You still have those memories, and I think that's something that I kind of inserted myself in, with this book.
Very much, yeah. I could really perceive that, and I think about in my own life, and and the experiences that I've had, and all through the book I kept saying, "Oh, that's because she's young."
That I'm young?
No, the character.
Yes.
Because she's so idealistic. I mean, she's just sure that Cruz is going to come and he's going to show up in her house, or he's going to write her a letter, and it's just, I mean, as the reader, you're reading it saying, "Oh no, this poor girl."
Yeah. There's a lot of I think torment in a way, throughout the book, but there's also a lot of hope. And so I think that's the thing that kind of keeps her going,
Yes.
So I really kind of wanted to portray those two sides, I guess, of her.
I have to say that was just, it was an inspiration to see that no matter what anyone said, no matter what anyone thought, she was steadfast that she's going to wait for Cruz. That's her love. That's the guy. That's the one. And whether you like it or not, I'm waiting for him. And that was, I thought that really spoke volumes for her integrity. Oh, I also love this when she has a relationship throughout the book with this priest, Father K. And it was just, I chuckled to myself when she had an experience after Cruz left. She had an experience with a boy, and she's feeling so guilty, like she didn't even kiss the guy. And she's going to Father K saying, "Oh, I've done this terrible sin," and he's just chuckling,
And I think that's the part of her being just, naive, and young,
innocent, yes,
and knowing that, just being young.
Yes.
Being young,
I throughout the book she says, "Well, I'm going to have to tell Father K about this one," and so I thought that his presence in the book really brought in I don't know if you want to call it just an oversight, or just he kind of simplified things for her and helped her to see that you're not married to this guy. You have to understand that you're a young girl, and love's going to come again, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think he sort of grounded her in a way that she needed, because you'll probably talk about the parents and that whole dynamic, but
oh man,
I think that the Father K just kind of grounded her and was like that example, I guess, that she needed at that time.
Now Val's the main character, Val, her parents are in a band, a world famous band, and they're always on the road, right. And so she tends to be alone a lot. She's very independent. I love how you brought in not a lot, but you brought in a lot of the Latino aspect of family, familia, and values, and how so many times when we have someone in our family, and Latinos try to, and just like every culture, they especially the older people, they want to have their culture maintained, and they don't want their children to marry outside of the culture. And so it was so important that we talk about that. I mean, that that was part of the book, because it's a reality.
Yeah. And I think that's why too I kind of made the main character, she's mixed. So
Cuban and Mexican.
So she had a lot of cultures. And some of it too was, I think, just my own thinking about, do I have the right to write about Cuban people? I'm not Cuban. And this is like a conversation that a lot of writers are having, just with that. But so for me, I kind of integrated, Mexican culture in there. So I think it made it a little bit better for me, gave me a little pass maybe. But just having that mixture, because everybody, there are a lot of people that are mixed, and that's okay. So I think she valued both, both sides of her family, and so yeah.
I love that. her parents were actually very supportive throughout it. You know, especially her mom. You know, her mom would say, "How's Cruz?" You know, "How's Cruz?" And throughout the story, she would, you know, kind of haphazardly explain, you know, "He's all right." She would, you know, she really didn't go in depth until really toward the end of the book, when she said, "How's Crucito?" You know, and she asked in a different way, and it was like the parents, their relationship not only evolved with each other throughout the book, which I really appreciated, but also with her. You know, she was Daddy's little princess, and as she grew older and older, she came to realize that life has complexities, and you very, very. I like the way that you flavored it with those complexities about life that we all face. You know, father may have had an affair, and so that really it dashed her dreams. I mean, this idealistic girl who believed in true love and who really expected that, you know, that this long lost love was going to come back, all of a sudden is disillusioned by seeing this reality in her parents.
Right. And I think that's part of the growing up, right?
Yes.
Like you said, like the realities, and like some things are not what they seem to be. And you know, I think one of my favorite lines from the book was how, you know, dads could break your heart too.
Oh yes.
You know, and so I think, you know, you broke her heart in a different kind of way.
Absolutely. You know, that's being a father. You know, right now I'm estranged from my youngest daughter, and it's difficult, man. I mean, I didn't have an affair. I didn't, you know, I've disappointed my daughter, and as a father, as I read this book, I could really grasp it. I really could, and I really felt that it was really smooth the way you transition from her finding out about this affair that her dad had to her finding solace in it and accepting that, you know, and Father K again brought into the story, hey, life goes on, and that's part of life, and you know, sometimes what happens in life is not what we really wanted. And so I think you expressed that very, very well.
And I also think that, you know, I wanted to have the message of like forgiveness
yes,
there, which, you know, is really important, especially like with the children parent you know, sort of dynamic, I guess. So that was really important to me, to show that, like, yes, you know, as parents, you know, we make mistakes, but, you know, hopefully the kids find it in their hearts to forgive us, no matter how big or small, you know. But she just didn't understand, you know, and I think that's why having the mom explain why they were in that situation, and
man, that was like a revelation. That was really good. Talk about that.
You know, I think that sort of came from how you were talking about, you know, sometimes your personal experiences will go into your writing. I think growing up, I just didn't have a lot of really great examples of healthy relationships. And so I think that's why that came out in that. You know, women were restricted in a lot of ways, and this is in the 80s, you know, women were barely coming into their own and becoming career women and things like that. So, you know, she really depended on the husband. That was her livelihood, really.
Yeah, and that was I felt so frustrated and helpless because of what you said. You know, I'm in this situation, yes, my husband cheats, but that's how it is.
Yeah, there's acceptance, and people normalized it.
Normalized it.
And I think it was just because, you know, women didn't work, and I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, financial reasons. So to me, that's why I was like, I think it's really important for the mom to explain why, you know, she sort of accepted that. Yes. But also, you know, towards the end, the mom takes her power back.
Oh man, that was great.
Yeah, she takes her power back, and I think that's what, you know, that makes for a great story.
Yes, it really does. I got to tell you, when she did take her power back, it's almost like it gave me a second wind as I was reading, because it's like, oh, thank you for coming to terms with this. And, you know, sometimes we don't want to lay down an ultimatum in life, but she was at a point where she had to lay down an ultimatum as a wife, as a mother, as a human being.
Right. And I think a lot of that was driven by the fact that, you know, she wanted to be a better example for her daughter.
Yes.
And so once, you know, Val found out about all these things, you know, the mom just really, that opened her eyes to say, like, okay, I need to make some changes. And so that kind of pushed her to do that.
Yes. And, you know, it flowed very nicely with that. You know, it was very touching, you know, and it was very, satisfying to see that she did come to peace, find peace with her father, you know. There was a time when the father said, hey, I'm not, you know, they went to California, they all lived in Miami, and when they were coming back home, Mom says, no, Dad's not coming home with us.
Yeah.
And that part of life and family and that dynamic is very real to so many of us, you know. And so I really appreciated that you included that in the book, because the reality is that life has ups and downs, and when we go through life, it's really nice to be able to understand that is just life. That is okay. That is, you know, we are going to have falls. We are going to have fails. You know, we are going to have wins, and it's all poured into that one big bowl that we call life.
Yes, exactly. But I think, you know, one of the things I really do, I'm probably sure you'll touch on it a little bit, but you know, these letters that, you know, she gets, and really kind of what the whole story is like based on, like I said, the letters in a bottle. To me, I mean, it's just like anything else. You know, there's signs all around us. Sometimes we don't listen. Sometimes we just, you know, don't want to hear the truth about a lot of things. And so that was part of, you know, her lesson and her being able to, you know, go on in life.
Yes, she was able to overcome and to deal with it, and I thought it was really, you know, it flowed very nicely in the book. Also, her parents were wealthy, you know. I mean, her parents were in this band, and they helped her to start an ice cream shop, which was kind of cool. I thought that, you know, hey, that's a little nice touch, because it gave her a chance to really express herself in the book and to really be who she wanted to be, you know. She said, you know, I moved in and I had to do a few little touches to it to make it what I wanted, you know, and you know, in the book it gets more and more successful, and she eventually opens a second shop, which is, I thought was really cool, because, you know, you want to see success in your characters, you know, and it's nice when you're reading the book that you see, man, she's been through a lot of downs, you know. It's really good to see some ups for her.
Yeah, but I think, you know, even though she was successful and she was, you know, on the right path, and she was going to be successful no matter what, because, you know, she had the support of her parents. But also she just had this like emptiness, you know. So I think that was another thing that I wanted to convey in this book, that, you know, you might have all of these things and people might, you know, think like, oh, you're so successful, like how could you be missing anything in life? But without love, like, we're nothing, you
There's
know.
a void.
Yes, there will always be that void. So I think that's why I really wanted to, that's what I tried to convey, that part of it.
I think that's really perfect. I think it's very fitting. The letters. So through the book, throughout the book, Val decides that since she doesn't have a phone number for him, he lives deep in Cuba where there's no phone service, and he didn't leave a forwarding address. So she decides that she's going to write letters and throw them into the ocean. Through the book, she did like 30 of them, and she has this perfect hope that one day this bottle will find Cruz in Cuba. And inadvertently, she touches the lives of people throughout Cuba and in Costa Rica. And I loved it because I as I read the book, I do different accents. I do, you know, I try to do a Cuban accent, a Mexican accent, Costa Rica, you know, an island accent, because she had these letters. And so I was so entertained reading the letters, because they're from wise people who give her this advice, and like you say, it's right in front of her, and she's not taking it. She has guys that are bending over backwards to be with her, Isaac and Javornik. And these two young men, one from the East Coast, one from the West Coast, they're both head over heels for this girl, and yet she can't see it. It's like, oh no! I'm not kidding you. Dee was saying, oh man!
It's a little frustrating, I heard.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. We was sitting under the tree yesterday, and we're reading, and Val would, you know, do Gavorkian came all the way from California to see her, and she blew it. It's like, oh! And then I think the thing I liked about that was because I could see myself in that. You know, I could see stupid things I've done in my lifetime and mistakes I made, and it's like, oh my gosh, I see what I did.
Yes. And sometimes you let the really good ones go, you know?
Yeah, you do, you know.
It happens. But, you know, her heart wasn't in it, and she liked him enough, you know?
Yeah, he was a nice guy. He was really a nice guy, and, you know, good-looking, buff guy, you know. And
I'm like, girl, what are you doing?
Dee was saying, "Fool!" That was pretty funny.
Exactly. But you know, Isaac, on the other hand, was like very sincere.
Yes.
And very sweet.
He loved her from the beginning.
He
and,
did.
you know,
He did.
I don't want to go too in depth on Isaac because he's such an integral part of the story all through it, and as you read the story and you find out about this young man Isaac, he's likable, I mean, both of them were likable, and in the beginning you think, well, she's in with some characters that might not be, have much integrity or might not be loyal, but she was with really good guys.
She was. Yeah, she was.
Guys, if you're just joining us, you are watching KUHS The Stream on Melody Drive. This is the Weekend Boost, and I am your host, Paul Lane. We are talking to author Christina Montoya on her book, If I Never See You Again. As I was reading the book, all through the book, you always try to look for the title in the book, as I'm reading it. By the way, it was very well edited, very, very well edited. I noticed that. The line, "If I never see you again," never appears till the very, very, very last pages.
You gotta wait till the end.
And so, but the message was so real and so important because, and I'm just going to say the self-love.
Right.
Self-love is really the most important love of all.
Yeah. I think that's what I really, that was really important to me because I really feel like, we are responsible for our own happiness.
Yes, we are.
And I think, she did look for that in other people, and it's just something that nobody could really give her.
Truly. At
the end of the day, yeah. So, I think, at the end of the book, it's just, she's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I was really, I liked also about the book how you would go back and forth, so you'd say, this is Val is speaking, and then all of a sudden it would go to Cruz speaking, and so it was really almost like a journal. Mm-hmm. And again, I just can't imagine, well, I guess I could, but, putting yourself into a character that doesn't exist, a character that is completely different from your culture, your gender, your age, all of these variations have to be inserted into this character. And so, did you study, or did you just just say, man, I'm going to come up with this character, or how did that come to be?
Yeah, I think with this book, if anybody has ever read my first book, my first book was really like more inspirational, more personal. Like I don't know, it was easier for me to write. Mm-hmm. And this book, I was like, okay, if I'm going to write another book, I just really want to be challenged in a different way.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what happened here. And kind of really getting into a male character more than I did before. It's a little challenging for me, but I don't know these people. It just happened. So
you just created them.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird because some people ask me, like, how did you come up with this stuff? I'm like, I really don't know. It just kind of happens. But I think that's the best kind of writing, Just
I do too. I think that, and by the way, almost every single fictional writer I've ever had on the show has always said the same thing. I don't know what's going to happen the next page. I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know what perils are going to be in the book, or what emotional roller coasters or highs or lows, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and I think that really creates such a mystery, such an ambiance that as you're reading the book, you're actually experience that with the author.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and I think I also another goal I had with writing this book was like, okay, I want to write a bigger book, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I don't know, I guess it just makes you look like a writer.
Yes. Yes.
More legitimate writer. But then I realized when the story's over, it's over. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not about how long the book is, it's about the contents and everything that you can pack into, however many pages it comes out to be.
Yes.
So for me, it was I was satisfied, maybe if I write something again, it's going to be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I'll have other goals to maybe write a bigger book, but to me, it's when the story ends, it's over, it's over. I don't want to push things where they don't need to be pushed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want the content in there that's relevant to the story. KISS, keep it simple, keep it short, simple.
Exactly.
And that's exactly how what you did. I haven't had the chance to read The Sacred Roots, but I would imagine that this is really a stretch from the first book. And I love that in you because it really shows that you have stretched yourself in a way that, oh, it's almost like you're putting your toe in that ice cold water and you're saying, I want to try it, but I'm scared. But
and I think the biggest difference also with these books is like, this is like a regional book. And, since I'm a part of Calma, and, there's a lot of writers that write, regional works. And for me, I'm like, I don't really necessarily want to get pigeonholed into being known as a regional writer.
Yes.
I want to be able to reach a bigger audience and kind of expand my network. So for me, that's why this is different. This new book is a lot different in that way, and also the genre. It's young adult, so that's a lot different as well. No, there's not a lot of people like with Calma. All of our authors. We have I think 60 authors now. There's not a lot of YA authors. So I wanted to kind of do something a little bit different, and that's why I had this challenge.
I thought it was great. I have a granddaughter who has an assignment to read like 20 books in the next year, and so I'm definitely going to recommend this book.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, I think the great part about this is young audiences could really appreciate this. No curse words.
No.
I really got to tell you, I appreciate that because I was adding my own curse words as I read the book.
I'm sure you were, especially times of frustration.
Yeah, Dee laughs because when I'm reading the book, I'll read it, and then to get to the end of a sentence, I'll add something just to make sure she's listening.
She's like, that wasn't in there.
Yeah, and so it really was. I appreciate that. It was very well written without any vulgarity. And don't get me wrong, I like vulgarity. I'm sorry, I do, but I like a clean written book
read,
too. Yeah, a clean read. Sure. Something that could be given to a 9-year-old child. Yeah. And the content is not so much over their head that they can't grasp it, and yet it's to a point where someone who is 9 or 10 years old could read this, or 15 years old could read this and say, oh yeah, this may relate to my own life. Right. When you're in that young part of your life, you're so confused about life itself, much less love, much less relationships, Yeah. And so, when you can see this sprinkling of, I don't want to call it deception because it really wasn't deception. It was more, I don't know how you would describe how Cruz just left, thoughtlessness, I don't know what you'd call it, but
also he did it to protect her.
Yeah, see, when you get to that,
protecting her, and I can understand that. But also, I think I just love the way that telling his story too, and his side of the story. So it wasn't like, oh, he just left and just abandoned her, and it wasn't really like that.
It was like he was still there.
Yeah, so I think once you kind of get into his story and learn a little bit more about him, you figure out that he was a really good guy too. He had the best intentions for her all the way to the end.
Yeah, there was a point where she was totally disillusioned with men. Yeah. She was disillusioned with love. She was disillusioned with humanity. I mean, she was at a point where she was just working sun up to sundown in her ice cream parlor, and she didn't want anything to do with humanity itself, and she couldn't find any joy. And yet, through it all, she was able to, thanks to her friends, Jenny and Omar, even they were characters in the book, but she was able to see happiness in other people and still have some hope for some happiness in her own life.
Yeah, she did, and she finds her happiness.
Yes.
Everybody might not agree with that, but I think that's the thing about writing. It's kind of like, you don't really write for other people to be happy. Maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
It's because it's up to interpretation.
It's exactly right.
It's art. So it's the same thing like if, you go to a museum and you see a painting, you're going to interpret it the way that and you're going to gain whatever you gain from it. So I think that's really kind of how writing is, for me anyway.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, maybe some people might not agree with it. And, some people always want that happy ending. But to me, I feel like she did have a happy ending.
Absolutely.
She did.
Especially with closure. Yeah. So many times in our lives we go through things and we have that open-ended festering sore, if you want to call it that, and it never heals. And so what happens is we're bruised or we're damaged, and we have that proverbial baggage with us. Right. And so we take it into our next relationship. We take it into our relationships with our family, with our siblings, with our children, with our parents. And so having closure, especially in this story, it really means that, yeah, she didn't necessarily live happily ever after, but she did come to some conclusion that what happened was okay.
Yeah, she had to make peace, right?
She made peace with the experience.
For sure.
And she was able to really find happiness through it all. Yeah, I thought that was a good way to bring it all together. And guys, I got to tell you, when you get to this book and you get to the last chapter, it's very satisfying for many reasons. One, it was satisfying that I don't want to say anymore because I don't want to give away the book, but it's satisfying in that there is closure to it, and there was. And what I mean by closure, there was an opportunity for her to finally express her feelings to KUHS from so far away.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, oh.
And I think, I guess because my first book, I'm kind of like a magical realism type of writer as well. So I think that's that little sprinkle of magical realism, I think, at the
Very
end,
good.
which I love. Yeah,
Yes.
I just love that genre. So maybe one day I'll write a total magical realism book. But yeah, that's where that came from.
What are some of the things that you would like to convey in this book to readers? What are some things that I might have missed?
I think we pretty much hit on everything. Like I said, I think it's just the things that we're looking for we already possess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just like there has to be times of introspect, I
Yes.
guess, and I think sometimes people, that gets blurred because,
Mhm.
You're in unhealthy relationships, you have different things going on in your life. But I would just encourage people to kind of like take that time like she did. She took time, she went away,
Yes.
she took time to herself, and that's where she kind of got centered.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think, that's the biggest message I think I would want to convey throughout this book is, what you're looking for, you already have.
Yes. It really is. It's like Dorothy, it's always been there within you all the time,
Exactly.
And so I felt like when I got to the last page, I sighed a breath of relief, both for her and for KUHS, because again, the closure was there. By this time, KUHS was already well on his way into his own life, and honestly, she was on her way to hers. She didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times the young people in our lives don't even realize that we're right in the middle of the heat of the journey, and the time you should be enjoying it or really appreciating it is right now.
Yeah, and what, Paul, shares something with you too. I actually wrote like an alternate ending.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh.
And once when my editor read it, because first I sent her this version here, and then I was like, I have a different ending. And then I sent that to her, and she's like, you know what? I think you should leave it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was maybe like a happier ending than what I think that people would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But she encouraged me to leave it out, and that was my gut feeling anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I only did that because I had a couple of beta readers who read my book a couple of years ago when I wrote this. I wrote this during COVID, and they were just like, oh, they're just so disappointed, I guess, that she didn't find her true love, I guess, or find love that they didn't think.
Mm-hmm.
There goes back into interpretation, right? So I wrote an alternative ending.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and then I left it out.
Mm. I like that. There was a couple of times in the book where she almost let go. She almost really gave herself permission to be free from this bond that she had with this young man. And at the last minute, she pulls back. And I think that in life so many times we do that too. We get so close to where our proverbial, treasure pot is, and then we, like someone mentioned to her, Isaac, in the end, you sabotaged yourself. Oh no, that was Gavokian.
Yeah.
You sabotaged yourself, and to hear those words is a huge revelation. And I was reading it, and I just thought, what was she thinking when she read these? I did.
Well, and I think too, it's because you're never going to love two people the same way.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of where this stems from.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. You don't have to love people in the same way. You
No.
can still love them,
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's just going to be different. But I think she wanted to feel that exact way. And if she couldn't feel that exact way, she didn't want it.
It just wasn't real. It
She
wasn't
didn't want it, yeah.
the real, or what she perceived as what love should be.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm a love story guy. I'm a chick flick guy. My wife loves it because I'll sit and watch The Notebook with her. I don't care. I love a good love story. I think it's
And you know, the only reason I really wrote this book too was because at the end of my first book, it's a love story, and I got a lot of really good feedback, and people wanted to know more about that. This couple's love. So then I was like, next time I'm going to write a love story, because I think that's what people wanted to hear. So that's kind of where that came from.
Talk about this book, Ophelia's the Sacred Roots of Ophelia's Rosas. What is this book about?
So this book is about it's a family story, I guess. It's a family story. Ophelia is the grandmother, and each chapter like kind of goes into her grandchildren's lives, different grandchildren's lives.
Oh, cool.
And kind of their story and their lessons. So it's kind of like a book of short stories in a way.
Oh, very good.
But it's also all connected, and it's connected by Ophelia.
Okay.
So all the, the times that, these grandkids are going through their own lives and have their own challenges and different things like that. Ophelia is kind of like this spirit guide, because sometimes she's alive and sometimes she's not alive.
Oh, cool.
This book is kind of like, has more magical realism in it, for sure.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
So if you're into magical realism, this is the book. But all the while she's just like encouraging her grandchildren, to live their best lives, do good in the world. So with this book, I really kind of wanted to, challenge people to do something. Do something good. So that's
very cool.
That's what this book is about.
I like a book that lays down a challenge. It's one of the Dale Carnegie principles, lay down a challenge. And I think in our lives we don't throw down enough challenges for ourselves,
Yeah.
We don't ask as much of ourselves as we really should.
Yeah. It's so funny because I was having a conversation with a couple friends the other day, and I was saying, like, after this book, I don't know what's next, because I always have to have, like, goals and things that I look forward to, and right now I just don't have any, although I should be enjoying this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I am, but I'm also like, okay, what's on the horizon, and what can I do next? And I think it's like, once you do something, like, I'm not going to say this big, but something that was big for me because it was a challenge for me, writing a book. I'm not really I didn't consider myself a writer, like that book. This book was the first thing I ever wrote, honestly, So I was like not really a writer, but so I'm just like, I don't really know what's next, because I think when you reach certain pinnacles in your life, you're just like, okay, well, what can I attain that's like bigger than what I've done before?
Yes.
And so I think that's where I struggle sometimes, like, I don't know what to do next. That's going to be bigger. But, for now I'm going to enjoy this and see what happens next. I'm just going to let it unfold.
Do you know how many people write one book?
Yeah.
It's very rare. I mean, to have a guest who has written more than one book is always, when I had Manuel Ramos on here, he's written like 10 books, 11 books.
Yes.
And you talk about humbling,
Yeah.
Yes, it's very inspirational to see this, especially you're a young lady.
I'm not that young.
You're not that young. Well, it's nice to see people who are really stepping out of their comfort zone, who are not sitting there just lazy. They're really making a difference. I have my slogan on my show is this: everybody's looking for a hero. If you can't find one, be one.
Exactly.
And that's what you are, Christina. This is exactly what, this is what makes a world better. And when you leave this place, these will not.
Yeah.
They will remain. As I say every week, well, I don't say it every week, but there's a book in everyone.
Yeah.
And every one of us needs to leave that book here.
Yeah. Well, this is for sure, hopefully, part of my legacy. I'm like,
yes.
If I didn't do anything else good in the world, or people maybe not recognize, I work in the background a lot of times, with different things that I do, which is fine. I'm not the type of person that likes to be in the front and gain all the glory. I'm not that person. I'm more of a background worker, which is fine with me. But this is part of my legacy, and
absolutely.
I think that teaching people kind of in a different way is something that I enjoy doing, and that's what this is.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes, I'm of the school of thought that we have a responsibility to mentor, to coach, to develop, to assist young people or even old people through this journey.
For sure.
Yeah, we all came in alone, and we're all going to leave alone. But through this journey, we're going to have times where we're going to have to hold someone's hand. There's times when we're going to have to lift someone up. There's times when we're going to have to give someone a swift push, or even a kick in the ass.
Right. And then too, like when you talked about mentoring, I think like I've mentored for a lot of years, but I think that like some of this is mentoring, just in a different form.
Yes.
But you know, it's still teaching, and hopefully, you know, young people, or like you said, adults will learn something from it, and just kind of like be challenged, you know.
Yes, that's a good point. She was mentored. She was mentored through, you know, by her aunt. She was her aunt Val, her priest, her mother mentored her. You know, there were several characters throughout the story who came into her life and sprinkled a little bit of goodness in her, you know, and not that she had badness, but a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of insight, and it really helped her to go to the next, you know, the next chapter in her life.
And all the people that wrote the letters too.
Oh man,
really
the letters!
Out of their way.
The people who wrote the letters. I think that going back and reading those letters is so meaningful to the whole. Because each one of them did come back with a message. You know, I had love and I lost it. I lost my husband. You know, each one of them had an experience that was relevant to her. But it was hard for her to see it because she was reveling in her own pain, in her own grief. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, so many times in life we need to overcome that.
And in a lot of ways, yeah, it was just, she tortured herself, you know, for a lot of years. But, yeah, but like I said, at the end, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
there
was, and again, I think that word is satisfying. When I got to that, I go, oh, okay, I got it. If I never see you again, yeah. And yeah, she didn't walk away like she was defeated. She was completely victorious, and I think as you know, as I closed the book, I could think Val's gonna be okay.
She's going to be okay.
Her character is going to be just fine. You know, I believe, you know, that after going through all that, she gave herself permission to find love again.
She did, and I think, you know, she did become the hero in her own story.
She certainly did.
She
really
saved herself, and I think, like I said, that's what I think people need to take away, the messaging from this book, anyway.
So now, take yourself a break, and you know, and just wait for the universe to show you what your next work's gonna be.
Yeah, you know, I want to write a memoir for sure. I think it's just, you know, that gets to be very touchy in a lot of ways, and I think that I'm not quite ready yet because there's a lot of truth, and I would want to tell the complete truth. And when it comes to writing a memoir, I think that you know, a lot of people might get hurt, and I don't know if that I'm ready for that yet.
Oh my gosh, Christina, I could so relate to that.
Yes.
You know, when I was writing my book, there were things that I put in my book that I now question whether I should have put them in there.
Yeah.
On my wife's deathbed, she confessed to having an extramarital affair. I put that in the book because it was real.
Yeah.
I was accosted at Porter Hospital in Denver by 8 cops with guns. It happened. It was in the book. It happened. I was innocent. I was never charged. I was never arrested. I was detained, never arrested. But someone made false charges against me in a hospice center that I fired. Long story. But I put things in the book that I was embarrassed about. Yeah. I mean, I had to really look at myself and say, man, I've done some things that I'm not proud of, but here they are. Here they are. Yeah, that's the truth. That's, you know, and I know that there's people who have read my book and hate me for what I've written in the book, and if I could do it again, I probably wouldn't have put that in there. But, as you say, if you're going to write a memoir, don't write a half a memoir. Yeah. Don't write kind of, this is kind of what my life was about. This is it, man. Here it is.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, so I think so I'm not quite ready for that yet. Maybe in a few years. But I am kind of working towards it in a way, and I want to talk about it a little bit if I can.
Sure.
Cosmos Anthology.
Oh yes, talk about that.
We need to talk about that. I didn't bring the postcard. I wish I would have, but it's on all our social media sites, everything like that. We actually are looking for donations right now to kind of bring this to fruition. But we're working on an anthology. The anthology is done pretty much. We're featuring about 25 authors, and from just like all different genres. So all across the board, like Manuel Ramos will be in there, really great writer.
I got 2 in there, 2 points.
Oh, you do? Oh, good. Okay,
yeah,
well, you need to talk about it too. Yeah, so my short story that's included there is a short story about my upbringing. So I'm kind of working towards, I have, different works that I think will eventually make it into a memoir, but
Where did you grow up?
in Globeville.
In Globeville, okay.
Yeah.
That's where Dee's from. She's from Swansea at Globeville.
Oh,
area.
really? Yeah. So it was pretty rough growing up there back then.
Yeah.
So just, things, and so my short story that's will be included in the anthology is from a perspective of an 8-year-old.
Oh,
And
see, that's what I love,
yeah.
that you're just really stretching yourself. You're really going outside that comfort zone and writing about things that are, they're not foreign because you have been 8 years old, but it's like writing from the eyes of that child or from a 20-something person.
Right.
Oh, that's like really stretching yourself, really reaching outside of your comfort zone.
And I think like in the short story that will be included is, talks about just like cultural things that were happening back then, living in a food desert, a lot of the things that I didn't know about or didn't have maybe a name for until, later on. I was like, oh wow, this is really what happened.
Yes,
I
yes.
talk about oppression and how, the government sets up the systems in certain ways to keep people in poverty. So I talk a lot about that, in my short story. There's a lot in a short story. So yeah, but it's from a perspective of an 8-year-old. So I'm really excited
I look forward
about
to that. I think leaving your comfort zone in that way is so powerful because it forces you to really step outside yourself and look at life from the eyes of another. And I think that's really so critical for us to do right now. Talk a little bit about Calma. I am so honored to be a part of Calma. I stumbled on it.
It's a great organization. So yeah, we started it. It kind of came out of a conversation with me and Dr. Davila. He's my mentor. He's been my mentor for a lot of years, more years than he probably wants to be because he still mentors me. But yeah, so anyway, we had a conversation, and also Arturo Jimenez, I think you had him on the show. He's been a friend of mine for a long time too. So we had a conversation, and we all kind of became authors at the same time. And we were talking about just creating a community of authors. And, and also talking about our experiences, whereas we didn't really have a lot of help and guidance around writing a book.
No.
There's not really that's not really accessible here, and especially for Latino writers. So we really wanted to say, we need to form a group of writers, aspiring writers, mentor aspiring writers, support existing authors, make sure people's works get into print. So that's kind of where the whole idea came from. And when we started it, it was really very informal. It was just like, let's get together. I thought it was kind of going to be more like a networking group. And then it just kept growing and evolving, kind of grew faster than what we anticipated. And we're like, oh, hold on a second, but we're well on our way. We signed up 60 authors, and it's really great because I think a lot of people didn't even know that all these authors existed.
Oh no, I mean, when I went to my first Calma event, I was trembling. I mean it. I mean, it's like, wow, all these people who look like me, all these people with brown eyes and black hair. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean that to sound prejudiced or anything, but to be in a room with intellectual people who have produced such quality works, that's like, oh my goodness, it's almost like finding a part of you that wasn't there.
Exactly. And I'll share a little bit about my journey too. So when I was young, I was about 18, I used to work for Denver Public Schools, and I worked with a Latina teacher. She was from California. And I remember during the Christmas break, she gave me a gift, and it was a couple books by Sandra Cisneros and other Latina authors. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that these people existed. So that kind of got the ball rolling for me to where I collect works by Latina authors mainly. And then I just kind of started I went to different workshops and things like that with other Latina writers. So that's kind of where it sparked for me. But that was a long time ago. So that's kind of where my journey started. But I think it's really important for us, and that's why Calma exists, because it's really important for us to tell our own stories.
Oh, so important.
Like you talked about, so many stories just being, there's a lot of stories that I'm sure people have on their desktops that they don't do anything with, and they're just there. So it's our job, I think, for us to encourage people to actually get the work out.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons that we really exist. And like I said, telling our own stories, from our own voice.
I got to share this with you. When I wrote my book, I never dreamed I would write a book. I mean, I'm not a college graduate. I've never taken a writing class. I blogged. Well, MySpace. Well, my wife was ill. She was in the hospice center, and I would blog because people would want to know. Family and friends would want to know what we were dealing with. How was this going? How was she that day? And so I just started writing blogs. And next thing I know, I had 400 followers. It's like, wow. I didn't do this to get followers. I did this to to get it out what I was feeling. And then a friend of mine said, you've got more information than most people about, a glioblastoma, a brain tumor. You should write a book. And I'm like, me? Me?
Yeah.
You're probably saying the same thing to yourself. Me? Yes, you. Page 1, guys. I started writing. And next thing I know, I had a whole book, you know?
Well, it's a funny story, too, because when I wrote my first book, I literally wrote it just like as a goal for myself. And I didn't plan on
publishing.
I did not plan on that.
Wow.
And then, I just really, after I went on a mission trip, I came back from Honduras, and I was like, I really feel like this messaging is something that somebody needs to hear, and even if it's only one person, like, I'm okay. Like, I don't do this for money. I do this for the mentoring piece and other reasons. But I was just like, I think that it's my responsibility to put this book out. I think I have something good that somebody needs to hear. And, once I did publish it, just the messages that I got and the feedback from people saying like how it changed their lives and how it really made them think, and it's really thought provoking. So I'm like, well, if I just wrote it from one person, I'm okay with that.
That's all count. That's all they need.
Me.
Yeah. And, I've heard the story of the guy that was throwing starfish in the ocean, thousands of them along the beach, and a guy came up and said, "Do you really think you're going to make a difference? Look at how many there are." And he didn't say a word. He picked one up and he tossed it in the ocean. He said, made a difference to that one.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when we are in this world, whether it's to lift someone up because they've had a fall, or whether they've been disappointed with something, if we can be that voice that nurtures, that lifts them up. I don't know, I have a philosophy that, when I'm with someone, I really, in my heart, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that when they leave me, they feel better than when they came. That they feel better about themselves, feel better about their life, feel better about their future. I want to be that person, and and that's what Galma is all about.
Oh, it is. And like I said, it's a great organization. I hope that people will contribute to our cause. Because
if someone wants to contribute, how would they go about that?
So just go probably on our Facebook. We're doing a GoFundMe campaign right now. We also have some other funding sources coming in, but the thing around the GoFundMe is for a community to come together to be a part of something.
Yes.
And
collective.
Yes, what we're doing with this anthology is really historical because it's never been done in Colorado. There's never been 25 Latino authors that have come together to produce an anthology.
Wow.
So in Colorado anyway. So we're really making history with this. There's a lot of interest, even from other states, other cities, higher ed. We've been in a lot of conversation with different people around this.
Very cool.
So once this anthology comes out, we're going to be out in the community, not only in the community, but in higher ed and doing panels and just really presenting this work.
Wow.
A lot of different places. So get ready for that because
we're
going to have a lot going on.
Bring it on. Guys, we are coming close to the end of the show. It goes so fast. I love doing this. This is so fulfilling for me. We have a guest coming up in 2 weeks. That's going to be, I think she's got a really exciting work here. It's Lydia Ortiz. Lydia Avant wrote this book, The Malevolent Nephilim. I will be starting on this book tomorrow morning, and we'll be talking about that in the next weeks to come.
She's one of our new authors.
And she's also a new member of Kalma.
She's new,
yeah. We had the opportunity to meet Lydia. She came over to our house a couple of weeks ago, and we stayed for about an hour just chatting and visiting and getting to know each other, and I think you're going to be really pleased. Also, another book that was written that takes place in southern Colorado, which is where my roots are from, and so I don't know, we've had so many authors who have written books about southern Colorado, southern United States, and so it just fits right in with a lot of the authors that we've had. So this is going to be coming up. And our next show is Paul Chavez, Mr. International. I believe he's going to be broadcasting from La Raza Park over on 38th Avenue today, and I guess next week's going to be the big one.
Yeah, next Sunday.
Next
at Outside
Sunday.
Park. But also before that, so you'll have a full weekend next weekend if you guys want. Saturday, I'm having a book launch. I am launching this book
Oh, yes,
next
yes.
Saturday, so I'll talk about that a little bit at Convivio Cafe, and that's on 38th and Yates.
38th and
at
Yates.
6 o'clock. So I'm going to have live music, a couple drinks, and just be able to kind of really visit with people. I pre-signed
cool.
all the books, because last time I kind of learned my lesson with that, wasn't able to visit with people. I pre-signed the books, and I just want to come and have everybody come and celebrate with me.
Very cool. Next Saturday, guys.
Saturday.
38th and Yates. What time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock p.m.
Yes.
Go over there and get some snacks, listen to some music, get to meet Christina, find out for yourself why her books are going places, find out why this is such a great book, and get one in your hands, guys. Get one on your reading table. Get one of these books, order it. Where can they get it? Again?
They're on Amazon, but I'll have them both available on Saturday.
So, come out Saturday, pick up a copy of this book, an autographed copy. You gotta have it, guys. It's really, really good for you to keep expanding your knowledge base. Read. I mean, it's really the ticket to anywhere you want to go, anytime you want to be there. I just love it. I feel that this show has been just the greatest avenue for me to introduce really, really talented authors, and I'm so thankful that I've had this opportunity to meet you and to talk about your works, and Calma, talk about what you've really accomplished, and you have so much to be proud of. I mean, it's just so awesome, and I think that you have the world by the tail. And guys, I'm not kidding you. This is a really, really, really good book. It's a great read. I'm definitely going to have to get a copy of this one for my reading. If you're interested in coming back and talking about this show on another show, we'd be glad to have you. Guys, we are literally out of time. Again, everybody's looking for a hero. If you can't find one, be one. Christina, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
It's been
and
great
thank you for your support of Calma too.
Yeah,
we appreciate you.
I'm glad to be a part of it. I mean, it's an honor for me, and
Thank you.
I've gotten to meet so many sharp, wonderful leaders, men, women, and it's so nice because there's value there, and there's power there, and it's a future, and it really is a good future.
Yes.
Guys, you've been watching the Weekend Boost. This is KUHS, the stream on Melody Drive. We love you. We will be talking to you in 2 weeks, where we will be having Lydia Avant as our guest. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Are we off?
Okay. Turn
Thank you. That was great.
It was great. Thank you very much. It was really.
I'm like, I didn't know I could talk for a whole damn hour.
That was pretty amazing, honestly. So this is what you do as authors and books and things like that?
Yeah. I do community leaders. I do, like last week I had Polly Baca. She was my mentor. She was the first Latina legislator in the state of Colorado.
I saw the show. It was great.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. It was
I
good.
love
I
Polly.
watch when I can. But I just like when people come live. I'm like, I don't really like too much when they're on the screen. I'm like, you got to get in the